Hello and welcome to the Game Lore Archives. Today we begin looking at the final era in the Elder Scrolls timeline.
Well, until a few more games come out, of course.
So, because the fourth era hasn't finished yet, it is the shortest era for us to cover. However, this may well be one of our longer episodes. This is the first major event of the fourth era, and it's the time that the dead rose to follow the floating island of Umbriel.
Reading the books were really interesting if you're into Elder Scrolls lore, as there is so many little bit lore tidbits spread out throughout.
But in this specific episode, we are only going to focus on the main story itself.
It means that there'll be some surprises left in the book if you do decide to go and read it. At the end of the Third Era, the Oblivion crisis was stopped and the Septim bloodline ended, meaning the Imperial Empire needed a new ruler. A man named Titus Mede I was crowned the new king of the empire. The province of Morrowind was affected the most during the Oblivion crisis, however, as at some point Vivec, the last living member of the tribunal, vanished without a trace. With the last member of the tribunal gone, their godlike power began to fade from the world, including the magic that was preventing the Ministry of Truth from crashing into Nirn.
The Ministry of Truth we have discussed in the past, but basically it's a huge meteorite that Vivec froze mid-fall to protect the citizens of Vivec City.
A man named Vuon realised that what a danger this meteor would pose when Vivec's magic failed. So invented a powerful machine called the Ingenium. The Ingenium's job was to cause a rift between Nirn and Clavicus Vile's realm of Oblivion. It gathers dark energy that seeps from the Daedric realm to keep that meteor afloat. The downside of this was that the Ingenium required souls to keep this rift open. At first it required about 10 souls a day, but in time Vuon managed to reduce this one to about one sacrifice every 4 months. The method worked very well for around 3 years until the wrong sacrifice was chosen.
So Volhold's rival and kinda closest friend was a man named Sol. By man, I of course mean Dark Elf, as both of them live in Morrowind. The two friends were in constant competition against each other over every little thing, including the affections of a certain woman. And when this woman chose Sol over Vuhol, suddenly she was chosen for the next sacrifice. Sol refused to accept his lover's fate, so launched a rescue mission.
Which spectacularly fails.
He also destroys the Ingenium. Without the machine to keep the meteor in the sky, it crashed into Tamriel as if it had never been slowed down to begin with. And this impact causes Red Mountain,
which is the largest volcano in all of Tamriel,
to erupt, killing millions, hundreds, however many, it never specifies. And it covers the entirety of Morrowind in ash. The icing of the cake is, after all of this, the Argonians, sick of the years of slavery, see this as a perfect opportunity to get revenge and invade half of Morrowind. This horrific year took place in the 5th year of the 4th era and is known as the Red Year. Of course, Sol's lover never saw any of this, as she died the second the Ministry of Truth hit the ground.
Amazing, well done.
GG.
Yeah. A different fate, however, was in store for Sol and Vuhon. As the Ingenium exploded, the rift into Clavicus Vile's realm widened and pulled them both through. Waiting on the other side, a being known as Umbra was waiting for them.
So, you might recognise the name Umbra. It's a sword that you can find in both the games Oblivion and Morrowind. It was forged by the combined power of Clavicus Vile and Sheogorath.
In Oblivion, the player returns the sword to Clavicus Vile. However, the sword's power was so great that it actually developed a consciousness of its own and manifested a body, naming itself Umbra after the sword. As Umbra is created with Clavicus Vile's power, his very existence weakens Vile. To gain his powers back, the Daedric Prince begins to hunt him down, knowing that if he stabs a manifestation with the Umbra sword, he'll be pulled back and trapped into the blade. So Umbra managed to hide in Clavicus Vile's realm of Oblivion, so to stop him from slipping away forever, Vile seals his realm off so nothing can leave and begins to hunt him down. Umbra devises a plan to escape and steals the Umbra blade. He takes the blade and uses his magic to see when the rift will be at its widest.
Which is when Sol and Vuhon fall through.
As they fall through, Umbra throws the blade back into Nirn so Vile can't use it against him.
The Umbra sword lands in Morrowind and is covered in ash, forgotten for many years in the now barren landscape. Some years later, a man named Elhul travels to Morrowind. Elhul is the son of Lord Sathil, a ruler of a small town called Sathil, situated in Solstheim. By pure chance, he uncovers the blade. As soon as he touches its hilt, he's driven insane, killing 2 of his guards and his own mother instantly. The rest of his guards manage to capture him, but can't get the sword from his hands. To protect his town, Lord Sathil locks Elhul well deep inside Castle Sathil. Within days, Elhul stops eating, yet never tires, never grows hungry, and he's just left roaming his cell, attacking anyone that ever comes near him.
With the sword now out of Vile's reach, Umbra turns his attention to Sul and Vuhon. Vuhon makes a bargain with Umbra, saying he will invent something that will allow Umbra to escape Clavicus Vile's realm. Vuhon betrays Sul and locks him up, helping Umbra to torture him daily. In between these torture sessions, Vuhon and Umbra slowly create a new and improved Ingenium machine to rip a new rift into the realm's walls. As they get more invested in their creation, they slowly forget about Sul, and he manages to escape the prison and Vile's realm.
He escapes into Azura's world and helps Azura for a time, and in exchange she aids Sul by sending him visions about how to stop Umbra and get revenge on Vuhon for killing his lover.
Clavicus Vile senses that Sul managed to escape his realm, so to prevent Umbra following suit, he tightens security around his realm's inner walls to prevent another rift being made. When the Ingenium is ready, Umbra and Vuhon change their escape plan, and instead of creating a rift, they use the Ingenium to twist the very walls of Oblivion until it breaks away as a separate bubble realm. Anyone who is in this bubble is trapped and cannot leave the bubble due to the Daedric Princes' strict restrictions. The island travels the void between the realms of Oblivion, eventually becoming known as Umbriel. Now, it's pretty vague in the book as to what happens between Umbra and Vuhon. However, they somehow combine themselves into one powerful being who controls the island. They name themselves Lord Umbra.
And I make sure I put Lord Umbra so we can differentiate between the sword and the bad guy.
But you put Law Umbra on this one.
I didn't say I could spell. So, I'm going to quickly interject the plot line so I can try and describe the inner workings of Umbriel Island itself. So it looks a little bit like an upside-down mountain, trailing long white tentacles like a jellyfish. The island itself is comprised of almost 2 or 3 layers. On the surface is a huge city where the island's higher lords reside. By the side of this city is a forest of trees known as the Fringe Gaia. These trees are very akin to the Hiss trees,
described as their cousin tree in the book.
Like the Hist, the Fringe Gaia has a hive mind connected to every being on Umbriel. Although their hive mind is much simpler than the Hist network, these trees seem to act a little bit like the island's brain, regulating all life on the island. Underground, in the very centre of the island, the Ingenium machine sits. This machine is made of multiple long white cables, which fall to the world below like the tentacles that we said you can see. These cables trail behind the island, striking living beings on the world below, grabbing the souls right out of their body. Their souls are then used to keep the island afloat and moving, creating new life for the island, or used for food. Huge ethereal moths swarm the island's sky. When a person's soul is taken, one of these moths will possess their corpse, bringing them back from the dead to be utilised as the island's army, or to gather food from the world's surface. Because the island is in a bubble, this dead moth things are the only way that Umbriel can interact with the world it's floating above. Surrounding the Ingenium machine is 4 locations known as sumps. These sumps kind of act like graveyards and birthing grounds all at once. So whenever a citizen of Umbriel is killed, they're taken to the sump. The Ingenium will then take the dead soul before the body is disposed of. In each sump is a deep pool of water, connected with each other's sumps with an underwater network of cave, which also spread out underground leading to the island's surface. The soul of the recently deceased citizen is reused and placed inside a worm thing. It's like a worm-like creature, never really goes into detail. And with this, the worms are creatures birthed in underwater pods. These worms will slowly transform to any type of person that the islands need. When they're ready to be born, a scraw,
the name of the workers who tend to the sump,
will dive underwater and bring them to the surface, so they can breathe, as they can't breathe underwater naturally. And then they go about where they need to go. And finally, there are multiple kitchens in the underground area, each serving their own Lord of Umbriel. The kitchens are in constant competition with each other, fighting each other to be the best kitchen ever. Life in the kitchens is brutal, and the chefs are killed if the higher lords are unhappy with their food.
Cooking in the real world is typically based around the four tastes of salt, bitter, sweet and sour. However, in the Umbriel kitchens, they deal with four more tastes: piquant, ephemerate, quick and dead.
Now, however these extra flavours taste, not a clue, but they're made by using a person's soul, while the rest of the ingredients for the meal are gathered from by the dead people below.
So now we understand what Umbriel is, I'll get back to the main story. So Titus Mede I has a son named Atrebus. Titus Mede doesn't really know how to raise Atrebus.
And the mother doesn't seem to be in the picture, as she's never once mentioned in the book. Now, whether she's dead or left, it literally goes into no detail.
Now, the second most powerful man in Cyrodiil is a minister called Hiram. Hiram suggests that Atrebus is raised as a hero, all of his feats exaggerated and written about, so that the kingdom thinks of him as a hero as well. Titus loves the idea, so as Atrebus grows into a man, he makes him fight with all of his guards. He instructs the guards to lose on purpose. The plan is a double-edged sword. The population love the prince, reading stories of how he saves them time and again, even if those stories are exaggerated. Unfortunately, on the flip side, Atrebus doesn't realise this lie is ongoing, so he really does believe that he is a great swordsman, that he can outfight all of his guards, when in actuality he's a mediocre fighter at best.
As Atrebus grows into a man, so does Minister Hiram's greed. No longer content with being only the second most powerful man in the Empire, he wants the crown for himself. At some point he somehow learns of Umbriel's existence and works out a way to communicate with Lord Umbra. He agrees to help Lord Umbra summon the island to Nirn, so he can land the island on the White Gold Tower and somehow use it to break away from Clavicus Vile's realm.
The White Gold Tower is an echo of the Tower, which was created by the gods. Many believe that the White Gold Tower holds hidden power because of this.
So when this is going to happen, Hiram plans to betray Lord Umbra and use a ritual to siphon the souls that the island has, giving him godlike powers of his own. He travels to Black Marsh in secret and helps the Anaxil to complete a ritual.
The Anaxil are the closest thing to a political party the Argonians have. Their job is to listen to the Hiss network and interpret its wishes.
The ritual causes a Hiss tree to separate from the Hiss network and go rogue. The rogue tree then summons its cousin trees to Nirn's surface. Finally, in the year 40 in the Fourth Era, Sol is awakened by a vision sent by Azura. He sees that Umbriel has arrived on Nirn and that he must seek out Prince Atrebus if he's going to succeed in getting his revenge on Vuhun.
In Black Marsh, two friends,
an Argonian named Mirglim and a Breton named Aneg,
begin to hear the rumours of a floating island coming from the ocean towards their homeland. Nobody is able to identify what the island... Whose homeland? The Argonians or the Bretons?
They both live in Black Marsh.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
Their homeland is Black Marsh.
Is Black Marsh, okay. Nobody is able to identify what the island is, even using magic. Worried, the two friends ask Aneg's father if he knows anything about the island. He works for the Anaxil, so is normally privy to any extra information. He answers,
"The city tree has told the Argonians there is nothing to worry about."
Mirglim is instantly suspicious of this answer. The Hiss trees are a hive mind and act as one, so there is no city tree, just the Hist. However, Aneg's father insists the Anaxil only communicate to that one specific tree before hurrying off.
Aneg is excited for the island's arrival. She's a budding alchemist and is currently working on the world's first flying potion. and she wants to perfect it before the island arrives so she can fly up to the island surface and explore. She heads to an alchemy shop, buying a mysterious ingredient the shop owner says was harvested from Oblivion itself. As she shops, Mirglim goes for a walk, troubled by Aneg's father's words, already suspecting that the tree is split away from the Hiss network. A rogue tree is a rare occurrence, but it has happened before. He tries to meld his mind with the local history in Lilmuth town for any clues. However, the message it tries to show him is cut short. He goes to speak to a member of the Sigic's order living nearby to see what his opinion is.
Now, the Sigic Order being a very powerful order where only the most talented mages can go, and it's pretty much exclusive to the High Elves.
The Sigic doesn't know what the island is, but he does believe it's Daedric in nature and will bring misfortune and death.
By the time Mirglim is talking to the Sigic member, Aneg has finished her potion and is getting impatient for her friend's return. She pulls out a small enchanted locket and chain her mother gives to her.
This locket seems to be a Dwemer invention. It looks like a really intricate bird with a mirror on its side, attached to the chain, which has a separate mirror. The locket, who Aneg calls Ku, can wake up at her command and locate any person. The wearer of the chain and the person holding Ku itself can then communicate via the two mirrors, almost like a FaceTime call on phones.
Yeah, that is convenient.
Yeah.
She tells Ku to locate Mirglim. As the locket flies out the window, she is interrupted by her father and some strangers. Her father has arranged for Aneg to be taken to the Imperial City to live with her aunt. Aneg tries to resist, however, is a child, and so her father's word is law, and the strangers force her onto their boat.
And what I mean by that is the strangers aren't being illegal. She's too young to say no to this. However, Mirglim overhears Aneg's kidnapping, and he through Ku, and he is now convinced that the island is extremely bad news, as why would her father go to such extremes in getting her out of the city? So after the boat leaves the shore, the captain of the boat allows Aneg to wander it freely. Mirglim swims up to the boat and snatches her overboard and swims her back to the shoreline. Mirglim tells Aneg his fears that the rogue tree is communicating with the flying landmass, so they begin swimming towards Lilmuth town to warn everyone. Before they can reach the shore, the mighty island hovers into view. Mirglim reacts strangely to the island's presence. His eyes go blank and he starts mumbling under his breath, moving slowly towards the island. Aneg tries everything to snap him out of it, but she can't get him out of this trance and begins to panic. With some really strange panic logic, she just decides to give him the untested flying potion. She drinks some herself as well and hopes for the best. Luckily, the potion does work and they do begin to float.
The good news is that Mirglim does actually snap out of his trance as well.
The bad news is the two young friends land on the floating island itself.
As Mirglim regains his senses, he immediately knows that something is wrong. For the first time in his life, he's cut off from the Hist's hive mind. He is confused with where he is and can't remember how he got there. Aneg drags him into a crevice in the rock so that she can fill Mirglim in on what happened. The hiding spot gives them a perfect view of the world below, and what they see will probably haunt them forever. They see an army of the dead being raised, marching towards Lilmuth town. The native Argonians stand in the middle of the town waiting to be slaughtered, still being controlled by the rogue tree, just as Mirglim was moments ago. Knowing that they're the only two people who can stop the attack, they decide to travel deeper into the island.
Before they delve deeper into the underground caves, Aneg uses Ku and asks to locate Prince Atribus so he can warn the Empire of the island's attack, obviously thinking he is an amazing hero. They follow the underground network until they are caught by one of the Squirrels.
A squirrel is a worker who tends to the sump.
He keeps them talking, telling them that Umbriel is taking souls so it can be used as food and fuel. The Squirrel's chatter was a distraction, however, and the two friends are captured by a kitchen led by Chef Dwemer?
Quen? I wonder if it's silent J. Queen? Quen? Quijni?
Ijni?
As usual, we'll write it on screen.
Yeah. Who is a terrifying being with an invisible wrist blade that can seemingly grow and shrink indefinitely. So both friends are interrogated by the kitchen, so they can decide where they are to be sent to. Due to Aneg's knowledge of alchemy, Chef Cuisinier takes Anag into her own kitchen to teach her staff about the plant and wildlife found on Nirn, and in return, she will teach Anag how to cook for the higher lords. They realise that Mirglim isn't the best cook or alchemist in the world, but can breathe underwater, so he's taken to the sump due to the aquatic nature of the work.
Makes sense, I suppose. So, Prince Atribus is woken by Ku. He takes the locket and is surprised to hear Aneg talking through the mirror. After a hurried introduction, Aneg explains what has happened to her and the attack on Black Marsh. They talk through the night, and when she's done, Atribus immediately passes the information on to his father. Unfortunately, Titus Mead doesn't seem all that bothered by the news. He's aware of the island's existence and has sent both the College of Whispers and the Synod to investigate. However, as it's heading towards Morrowind, he doesn't view it as Cyrodiil's problem.
The order gets promptly ignored, and Atribus summons Gullen, his head guard, and Rashasa, his newest guard,
And lover.
and 52 other close companions. They meet at midnight in a small town and begin their journey towards Umbriel. They don't get very far. On the second day of their travels, half his guard go up in flame. Rashasa knocks the prince out and slaughters the remaining guards.
Aneg swiftly learns the ropes and gets promoted to serve a minor lord. With her promotion, she is allowed a little more freedom, giving her the opportunity to plan her escape from the island. The first step is to find the ingredients to recreate her flying potion so her and Mirglim can float back down to Tamriel. Mirglim also exceeds in his role at the sump. He feels sorry for the rest of the scrawl, however. Whereas he can naturally breathe underwater, the rest of the scrawl cannot. To tend the slump, they must breathe in toxic yellow vapours which shorten their lifespan significantly.
Atribus wakes up a few days later bound to a horse, surrounded by Rashada and 8 other bandits. They've taken him across the border into Elsewhere, where they were originally paid to kill the prince, however betrayed their employer so they can sell Atribus as a slave, as they will receive an even bigger payout. They travel further to Elsewhere over the course of 2 days, until they finally stop at a small pond. Rashasa tells Atribus to bathe, as after 2 days of walking, he stinks. She unlocks his handcuffs so he can wash. Using this opportunity to escape, Atribus grabs his sword and readies it to fight. But as we discussed earlier, Atribus is not a great fighter, and although he beat, in quotes, Rashada on her interviewer's guard, she easily beats him this time. She gloats at Atribus, letting him in on the secret that the stories about him are fake. Atribus denies it at first, but he kind of soon realises that she's right. He's not stupid. He's just been tricked. He doesn't let that knowledge stop him from trying to escape again, however, and he does make a second attempt.
This fight does go even better. He ends up on the floor with Rashasha's boot on his neck within 2 seconds.
While on the floor, he sees a dark elf striding towards him. Sol easily kills Rashada and each of her 8 helpers. He pulls Atribus to his feet and pretty much forces the prince to help him get to Umbriel. He tells Atribus that he overheard what Rashada said, and he grudgingly agrees to help him become a better fighter.
Before the kidnapping, Aneg and Atribus were communicating most nights. Since he went silent, Aneg has been worried about him, so she is ecstatic to hear from him again and begins her shift in the kitchens with a much lighter heart. This doesn't last long as her usual routine is disrupted by a huge explosion. Swarms of enemies enter the kitchen, slaughtering her colleagues. The attackers are from another kitchen, wanting to kidnap Aneg due to her recent success. Chef Quinn tries to protect Aneg, however she, along with the rest of her staff, are killed in battle.
But Aneg, of course.
Before anyone notices, Aneg takes Quinn's invisible wrist blade and attaches it to her own wrist in case she ever needs a weapon. Chef Toel, head of the attacking kitchen, introduces himself and takes Aneg to his own kitchen.
While this attack happens, Mirglim continues to explore the sump. He keeps his full swimming speed hidden, so he has time to explore the interconnecting waterways for a way to escape the island in between jobs. While the kitchens are at war, he finds a tunnel that leads him directly to the fringe Gaia trees, and he immediately suspects that they're related in some way to the His trees. As he explores the forest, he befriends a woman called Fana. Fenna has contacts in the kitchen and agrees to send a message to Anig for him. When Mirglim returns to the sump, the Scraw's overseer questions him for returning late. Mirglim snaps and shouts at the overseer and is punished severely as a result.
Standing up to the overseer has a huge effect on the other Scraw, who now realise that they can fight and argue with the higher lords.
As they always kind of thought that was just how life was. But with this new viewpoint, the Scraw start looking up to Mirglim as their leader, who can help get rid of an alternative to their deadly vapours they must use to use their job. Otherwise, they're pretty happy with it. It's just the toxic vapours are just a step too far. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this rebellion. Just remember that throughout the entire story, it does continue. To start the rebellion off, and to help with his escape from Umbriel more importantly, he asked the Skrull to draw a map of Umbriel for him.
Back on Nirn, Sol and Atribus walk through the Elsewhere desert towards Cyrodiil. On their way, they help a travelling band of Khajiit, who, as thanks, offer to protect the pair and travel with them to Umbriel. They travel as fast as they can. However, as they reach the Niben Bay in Cyrodiil, Sol realises that they cannot catch up with the island. He believes Lord Umbra is steering the island to the remains of Vivec City to retrieve the Umbra sword, so it cannot be used against him. Sol decides the group must traverse through the realms of Oblivion to get to the sword before Lord Umbra can.
Sol and Atribus head to Breville to get supplies to their trip into Oblivion. While they're gone, the Khajiit organise their caravan so the weakest, oldest and children return home in safety, while the strongest will continue through Oblivion to protect Sol and the prince. That evening, when everyone is ready, Sol summons a portal into Oblivion and the party step through. They appear in Hircine's realm, the Daedric Prince of the Hunt. As soon as they land, Hircine's terrifying war horn sounds and werewolf begin to chase the party down, the newest targets of Hircine's eternal hunt. They run towards the portal exiting out of Nirn where they're going, however the werewolves are far outspeed the party. To give them enough time to escape, the Khajiit clan sacrifice their lives by attacking the werewolves. The Khajiit are slaughtered, however the diversion does allow Sol and Atribus to escape back onto Nirn.
Anik is summoned to Chef Tor's chambers. She is fearful and does not know what to expect. Surprisingly, he just wants to talk about her life before Umbriel. As they talk, Anik digs for more information on the island. She finds out that if anyone remains on the island for too long, they will naturally become part of Umbriel, trapped by Vile's spell. In the new kitchen, Anik keeps her head down and stays out of trouble, so that in between her chats with Toel and cooking, she can work on her flying potion. She manages to find the last ingredient which she couldn't find in Quinn's kitchen. Just as she finally finishes the potion, she's interrupted by a Skrull who has a note from Mirglim. She writes back to Mirglim telling him that the potion is ready and arranges a time to meet so that they can escape. The friends reunite at midnight and take the flying potion, but as they fly towards Tamriel, Toel's warning becomes a reality and their bodies slowly start to evaporate as Vile's spell prevents them from leaving his realm. Crushed, they return to Umbriel, forced to accept that this island may be their new home.
Atribus and Sol land in the ruins of Vivec City. Sol looks for the Umbra sword in place Azura told him it would be in one of her visions. However, it's no longer there. He casts the Ancestor Guardian spell all Dark Elves know to talk to the ghost of his lover.
This is a spell that all Dark Elves can do, which we explained in our dedicated Dark Elf episode.
The ghost tells him that the blade was taken towards the Sea of Ghosts.
She is, of course, referring to Elhol.
As he talks to his lost love, Umbriel looms into view with an army of dead underneath. Atribus and Sol try to fight the oncoming tide of zombies, however are soon overrun. Before the dead get a chance to kill them, Lord Umbra summons them to the heart of the Ingenium, trapping them with the glass-like vines. He seems to have infinite control over them and can tie you up and do whatever. Lord Umbra does offer to spare Atribus if he goes to the Imperial City and convinces everyone to evacuate. He says if the city is empty by the time the island arrives, he won't kill anybody else. However, souls would need to be left behind as forfeit. While Lord Umbra talks, Sol channels his Magicka and casts a spell that shatters the glass holding them in place. The pair, no longer supported by the glass vines, plummet towards Nirn. As they fall, Saul teleports them to Meridia's realm of Oblivion. However, the perils of Oblivion might have stopped them from hitting the floor, but comes with its own dangers. They nearly managed to escape from Numidia's realm. However, without any Khajiit there to help them out, both heroes are butchered by Daedra.
The kitchens of Umbriel are all summoned and told they are to create a banquet for all of the higher lords. The lords will then judge the kitchen's food, and the winning kitchen will prepare a meal for Lord Umbra himself. Anig knows this is the perfect chance to get close to Lord Umbra. Their main opposition in this competition is led by Chef Fimer. Earlier in this episode we discussed that the 8 sensations of taste on Umbriel being salty, bitter, sweet, sour, piquant, ephemerate, quick and dead. The reason Chef Fimer is expected to win is because she has created a 9th sensation, and no one else knows what it is or how it's made. Chef Tor tells Anig she must find and create this 9th taste.
While Anig stresses over an incoming competition, Mirglim is having a much more relaxed time with his job at the Sump. However, his extracurricular activities of maintaining the Squaw Rebellion, along with frequent chats with Fenna, are keeping him busy. As Anig is told of the banquet, Fenna confirms Mirglim's suspicion that the fringe Gaia trees are related to the histories by telling him that everyone on Umbra can hear them, just like Argonians can always hear the histories' hive mind.
Since the failed attempt to escape, Anig meets with Mirglim frequently. Anig asks for the Squaw's help to break into Chef Fimer's kitchen. Mirglim tells Anig about the fringe Gaia trees. With this knowledge, Anig thinks of the perfect plan to stop the island from killing the citizens of Tamriel by poisoning the fringe Gaia trees.
Atribus and Sol awaken from death. They find themselves in a grey room with no windows or doors, with the Daedric Prince Malakath standing before them. He has teleported the pair into his realm and revived them. He has been watching Saul's quest for revenge closely and does not want it to end yet.
Malakath is the Daedric Prince of Revenge after all.
Saul tells Malakath that if he wants to see him succeed, then he will need help locating the Umbra Sword. Malakath agrees and teleports them to the island of Solstheim outside of Castle Sathil.
Anig begins creating a potion that will kill the floating island's trees, knowing it's the only way to stop the invasion of Tamriel. When she eventually returns to her chambers, 3 people are waiting for her and escort her to Chef Toll and Fimer. Chef Fimer believes that someone has stolen the 9th sensations of taste from her kitchen and is accusing Anig of the crime. She releases a strange creature to sniff out the ingredient. The creature finds the 9th sensation, but not on Anig. Anig sets a woman named Slayer up to take the fall, hiding the 9th sensation in her pocket and getting the Squaw to take her close to Chef Fimer's kitchen.
I should point out that this sounds really, really mean, but Slayer did attempt to kill Anig earlier in the book.
Chef Fimer accepts Slayer's guilt and drags Slayer away to her kitchen. When her and Toel are alone, Anig reveals to him that she didn't steal anything from Fimer, but invented the flavour from scratch. She just needed to know if it was correct. When Chef Fimer recognised the ingredient in Slayer's pocket as the 9th sensation, she confirmed Anig's invention. The 9th sensation of taste is the complete absence of flavour.
Mirglim and Anig meet up to make a plan that will help both of their causes. They agree that the Skrull will start their rebellion in full, however not openly. Instead, they'll sabotage things without claiming responsibility. Because of the upcoming banquet, everyone will think that the kitchens are sabotaging each other. The Skrull will then fix these issues when asked, making them look good, possibly even being rewarded with an alternative to the deadly fumes. Eventually, if they aren't rewarded, they're then in a position where they can just refuse to fix the damages until the change is made. On the flip side, Anig will know what sabotages are coming, so can work around them, giving her the upper hand against the other kitchens. Anig also asks the Skrull to learn the other lords' taste in food, so she can adapt her meal plan to suit them best. If her kitchen wins the chance to cook for Lord Umbriel, she'll be ever closer to the top and might have more opportunities to learn of ways to stop Umbriel.
This plan works well for a while, and everyone really starts praising the Skrull's hard work. However, the day before the banquet, Chef Toel learns of a sabotage attempt in the Sump and loses patience and goes to meet with the culprit head-on, dragging Anig along with him. He witnesses the Skrull attempting to sabotage the Sump, but before he can try to stop the Skrull, Mirglim launches himself out of the water and attacks Toel. When Anik realises who is attacking her boss, she uses a hidden wrist blade to cut Toll in half.
Murder wasn't exactly on the Scroll's Avenger, and so they understandably start to panic. Anik takes charge, telling them to clean the sump up and dump the body in Chef Vermeer's kitchen, so everyone will think a kitchen murdered their competition. The plan probably would have worked, but one of the Scroll loses his nerve. He doesn't tell anyone about Anag, but does tell one of the Higher Lords the Scroll's rebellion being led by Mirglim. The Higher Lord responds by sending guards to hunt down and kill Mirglim. The Argonian manages to escape into the sump's underwater tunnels, however while escaping is hit by a barbed harpoon gun. Despite the injury, he manages to outmaneuver and outswim his pursuers, however passes out before reaching the surface.
With Toll's death, Anik takes over his kitchen and manages to win the competition. When she returns to her room, she is escorted to Lord Umbra himself. Lord Umbra congratulates her success, but is not there to praise her work. He tells her she must make a poison and add it to Umbriel's water supply. The poison must kill Mirglim while not affecting anything else, and his death must appear natural, so he doesn't become a martyr to the Scrawl. Anik knows that she cannot defy Lord Umbra openly, so creates the poison and releases it into the island's waters.
Mirglim rouses 3 days later in a small cave in the Fringe Gyre. Fenna found him in the water and has nursed him back to health, as the nearby medics refuse to help. Mirglim stays to recover for another couple of days, but knows he must go and see the Scroll. However, as soon as he gets into the water to swim back to the sump, Anik's poison takes effect. After a brief numbness spreading throughout his body, his heart stops. His corpse is found soon after and brought to Anik to identify. She has to be left alone with her dead friend so she can say goodbye. When everyone has left the room, she pulls a crystal growing from the base of his tongue.
Sol and Atribus search south of the castle for the Umbra's sword for a few days without avail, gaining entry by pretending to be writing a guide on the animals in the provinces surrounding Cyrodiil. None of the castle servants recognize the pair, apart from a maid named Iringia. Atribus confides in Iringia, who agrees to show them where the sword is. She tells Atribus of Elhul's fate and how he has been locked away in the castle for his own safety ever since he found the sword. She leads the pair to a large iron gate, saying Elhul is trapped on the other side before leaving them to retrieve the sword.
As they step through the gate, Elhul's sister emerges from the shadows, locking the gate behind them. She hopes that they can end her brother's suffering, but will not allow them out of the castle in case the sword corrupts their minds as it did Elhul's. They go into the dark room and see what remains of Elhul, a mere husk of what he used to be, the Umbra sword almost an extension of his own arm, and his skin has become as tough as iron. After a tough fight, they do manage to kill Elhul, and as he dies, Umbra's corruption, a deadly smoking green fluid, starts pouring from his corpse. With the only escape now locked, Sol quickly uses a bit of cloth to grab the sword without touching it himself, and tries to open a portal into Oblivion. Before he can finish this portal, the Daedric Prince Clavicus Vile himself summons them into his realm.
Clavicus Vile is known for making deals with mortals and then backing out of his deals at the worst possible time. He is noticeably weakened by the power Lord Umbra has stolen. Clavicus agrees to help Sol get his revenge on Vuhun, but it will come at an unknown cost. Sol agrees, knowing there is no other way of getting to the Imperial City before Umbriel does. The Daedric Prince teleports Atribus and Sol to Clavicus Vile's Daedric Shrine outside the Imperial City. Vile's weakness shows again as they are both teleported several feet above ground. Atribus falls to the floor unharmed, however Sol is knocked unconscious upon landing. Atribus drags Sol to a boat and begins rowing them to the waterfront district in the Imperial City. As they get near, the boat is lifted above the water by a legion of the dead laying in wait under the waves. Instead of being killed, Minister Hiram takes them to his cell in his chambers.
When Anag is working in the kitchens, she's called to the pantry. Standing there is Fenna wielding a knife, wanting revenge for Mirglim's death. How she knows it was Anag's fault, I don't know. But Anag calms Fenna down and brings her to her private chambers. There, in the waters of her bath, is the crystal that she took from Mirglim's mouth, and inside the crystal is a smaller version of Mirglim growing. Anag knew that she would not get away with saving the Argonian, so instead create a poison that would not only kill him, but transfer his soul, memories and everything into the crystal.
Very much like a soul gem.
and this crystal could be put in water and will be able to regrow in just a few days.
When Atrebus and Sol gain consciousness, they find themselves behind bars with Minister Hiram standing in front of them. The minister confesses to summoning the island to Nirn and his plot to betray Umbra, but he knows that Lord Umbra fears Sol and wants to know why. He begins to torture Atrebus for information. He stays strong and reveals nothing. However, he loses his grip on reality for a day or two. During this time, Sol tells Hiram that Lord Umbra fears the Umbra sword to spare Atrebus's mind any more torture. Hiram decides to keep the pair alive so they can still kill Lord Umbra if his betrayal fails.
Now, throughout the books, an inspector called Colin for the Imperial Army has been investigating the disappearance of Prince Atrebus and who's been attempting to kill him. His investigation leads him to suspect Minister Hiram. As he discusses Umbriel's approach with his superior officer, the officer tells him that Atrebus was spotted being kidnapped, but no one knows where he was taken. Colin figures he must have been taken to Hiram's chambers, so runs to release the captured prince. He finds Sol and Atrebus in their cells and uses his magic to release them. Once free, they begin to discuss a strategy of stopping Umbriel once and for all. Atrebus has seen Hiram using a sigil on the floor to teleport up to Umbriel and back. Even though they don't know how to activate the magic sigil, Atrebus saw a rat that was standing on it vanish as Hiram appeared, making him think that whatever on one sigil swaps over with a similar sigil on the island whenever the spell's cast. So to get on the island, Atrebus and Sol stand on the sigil, so when Hiram returns they'll be teleported to the island. Colin will stand behind them and attack Hiram on his return.
Maeglim takes his first breath since dying. He feels strange. His mind has been silent since his connection with the history was severed. However, his mind has awakened with the sound of the fringe gear trees. They instantly feel familiar to him, but a lot simpler than the Hist's hive mind. His mind is now connected to these new trees, and he feels a part of them. He understands instantly that the trees just wish to return to their homeland.
Which could be anywhere. We just know it's not on Nirn, and they didn't originally come from Clavicus Vile's realm, but we don't know where.
He instantly knows that if Anig releases the poison, it will not only kill the trees, but every civilian on the island, including the innocent Squirrel. He rushes to Anig, trying to prevent her from releasing the poison, but it's too late.
After a time, Minister Hiram uses the sigil. Sol and Atrebus are teleported to the island as Colin jumps out and attacks Hiram. The fight is long and hard, but Colin does eventually manage to kill the minister. Sol and Atrebus land on Umbriel directly in front of Lord Umbra, surrounded by the Ingenium's glass tubes. Before Lord Umbra can attack, they both swing their swords at him.
Sol wielding the Umbra blade, still holding it with a cloth.
Both swords bounce off his skin as if it's made of steel. The judder of the impact causes Sol's grip on the sword to change, dropping the cloth. The second this happens, Sol is gripped by the sword's curse and loses all sanity. He attacks Lord Umbra wildly. Umbra manages to defend himself and pushes Sol away. Sol may no longer have a target, but his craziness doesn't stop him attacking, so he begins attacking the glass tubes around him. Lord Umbra tries to defend the Ingenium strands, and Atrebus takes advantage of the distraction and hit Lord Umbra's neck. Throughout the fight, Aneg's poison she released has slowly taken effect, so instead of his sword bouncing harmlessly off Umbra, it cuts deep into his neck, severing an artery. Lord Umbra controls the glass-like cords to wrap around Atrebus' neck so he can focus on Sol. However, Sol somehow smashes the floor and the cords, causing Atrebus and Sol to fall into the water of the sump.
As they fall, Sol drops the Umbra sword, regaining his sanity. Atrebus quickly explains how he cut Lord Umbra's neck. Sol realizes that the Umbra sword didn't hurt him, and that he must be weakened by Aneg's poison, which means that she will be his next target. Atrebus calls Aneg using Ku to warn her that Lord Umbra is hunting her down. Aneg relays the message to Maeglim and asks him to fetch Sol and Atrebus from the sump. He refuses unless she tried to save the trees, knowing she has an antidote. He knows that if he can give the antidote to the trees, they will distill the poison and save everyone on the island. Then he'll be able to steer the trees to their homeland and save the Imperial City. Anik hands him the antidote. Mirglim heads to Atrebus and Sol's location, mentally figuring out how best to supply the potion to the trees. When he arrives at the sump, he sees the squirrel looking deathly ill due to the poison flowing in the inland system. This sight makes him realise that the trees may be simpler than the hiss, but their connection goes far deeper. He drinks the antidote, which allows the trees to begin working on a cure.
Fenna tries to hide Aneg, however Lord Umbriel finds her with ease. As soon as he felt the poison in his veins, he knew it was Aneg's doing. The trees sensed the Ingenium was in danger, and so blocked the poison from going and affecting the machine, looping the poison around to everything else, including Lord Umbriel himself. Lord Umbriel attacks, but while weakened, Aneg manages to defend herself and uses the hidden wrist blade to cut off 3 of his fingers. But then Mirglim's antidote hits. Lord Umbriel visibly regains his strength and regrows his missing digits. But witnessing this causes Aneg to make the same connection as Mirglim did. But then she works it out. That Lord Umbriel's soul is no longer in his body, but in the Ingenium itself.
Sol, Atrebus and Mirglim appear around the corner. Aneg shouts a warning that they must attack the island's heart, and Sol immediately understands he must stab the Ingenium with the Umbra blade to kill Lord Umbra. They try to outrun Lord Umbra to the Ingenium, but somehow he manages to beat them back to the Ingenium's chamber. Sol attacks Lord Umbra head on, but is easily battered aside, causing him to drop the Umbra sword. Atrebus runs and picks it up, slamming the blade into the Ingenium without a moment's hesitation. Umbra and Vuhon seem to separate, with Umbra leaking from the Ingenium, his manifestation and power drawn once again into the sword. Vuhon sags to the floor, instantly losing his godlike powers. Sol looks at Atrebus. Clavicus Vile said there would be an unknown price for his help, and now Sol can see what it is. Atrebus is lost to insanity, with his eyes and voice matching Clavicus Vile's. Sol tried to save the prince, but Vile stabs Sol in the side. With the loss of his energy, he surprises Vile by punching his new avatar in the jaw and using the shock to wrestle the sword from Atrebus' hands. Atrebus reverts back to normal just in time to see the life drain from Sol's eyes.
Mirglim instantly feels a difference in the hive mind when Vuhon and Umbra are struck down. He knows that he is now in control of the island, and the veil the Daedric Prince put in this place has been lifted, so everyone can leave at will. Mirglim decides he won't leave, and he's going to stay on the island and help the Fringe Gaia trees return home. After saying goodbye to his closest childhood friend, Aneg takes Atrebus' hand, and they both take the flying potion, together landing in the Imperial City. Mirglim, with Fenna by his side, then steers the island away from Nirn into a safe new home.
After a few days of peace and recovery, Atrebus and his father Titus Mede discuss the attack of Umbriel. Titus Mede wants Atrebus to be celebrated. However, Atrebus thinks that he's had enough deeds attributed to him that he didn't do, so the Synod and the College of Whispers should be made out to be the heroes. The two schools of magic have always had a rivalry, and until they both help defend the city against the dead, they've never seen eye to eye. The knowledge that they both saved the city will hopefully cement them as allies, while also making them support Titus Mede's rulership, particularly now the second most powerful man of Cyrodiil is dead.
After this conversation, Atrebus goes to Aneg to talk about them. While they spoke through Ku most nights, the pair has developed a close bond, and although they need time to recover from it, they do want to start a relationship in time. And that is the end. These 2 books and the story of Umbriel. But thank you very, very much for joining us for our longest episode ever. I told you it would be, and it's
it's
double.
Incredible. It's incredible.
But thank you ever so much for sticking with us, and we hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, as there are more lore videos every other week and videos every week. None of this long usually. Thanks ever so much, guys.